Hi.
Hello.
I think Sophie's here. Dr. Burnham, I think we're all here, so let me know when we're good to start.
I think we're good to start.
Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and I will begin by turning it over directly to Dr. Burnham to confirm member access.
Good evening, everyone. As a preliminary matter, this is Dr. Burnham, Superintendent of Schools. I will do a roll call to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Chairperson Wendy Bertrand.
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Carol Ashambo.
Yes.
Secretary Laura Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Brian Leighton.
Yes.
Ms. Sophie Shapiro, and Ms. Shapiro actually let me know. Oh, here she is. Ms. Shapiro.
Yes.
Thank you. And I don't see a student representative this evening. Staff, the recording secretary, Ms. Sue Summers, is not here. Athletic director, Mr. Bunnell.
Present.
And the executive assistant to the superintendent, Ms. Liz Peters, is here tonight.
Here.
All right, I'll turn it back to you, Mrs. Bertrand.
Thank you. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and will be broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel and stream live on Facebook at a later time. And the Lunenburg School Committee this meeting is being conducted remotely. The town of Lunenburg, in response to the COVID-19 coronavirus, is currently following the guidance from the Lunenburg Board of Health, Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and the CDC regarding the virus and steps communities can take to prevent the spread of the virus. And currently all town facilities are closed to the public in accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. GL 30A section 20, all public meetings are being conducted remotely. The order, which you can find posted on the town website on the COVID-19 information page accessed through the town manager's webpage, allows public bodies to meet completely and entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Lunenburg School Committee is convening by telephone conference, video conference via Zoom app as posted on the town's website identifying how the public may join. For Zoom meetings, please note that this meeting is being recorded and some attendees are participating via video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Meeting business ground rules. We're now turning to the first item on the agenda, but before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, Wendy Bertrand, the chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Also, please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. The chair will first ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify themselves by name and address. Then each one will be called on and afforded up to 3 minutes for any comments. And finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. So with that, we will turn over to the first item on our agenda, which is public comment. So if we have any comment from the public, and this is regarding any items on our agenda this evening. So I'm just going to do this so I can see if there are any hands up. I'm not seeing any. Scrolling back one more time. All right, then I will turn us over to the first item on our agenda this evening, which is getting an update on fall sports too.
So I'll invite AD Bunnell to present to you now the proposal for the fall 2 season. I just want to make everyone aware that there are documents that kind of outline the proposal posted on the website under the school committee link. Additionally, the overview was sent out to all parents at the middle and high school this afternoon, late this afternoon as well, so that they would be aware. We also notified those parents by email earlier in the week that we had a meeting scheduled this evening to discuss the fall 2 season. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Bunnell.
Thank you, Dr. Burnham, and thank you, members of the school committee. I really appreciate it. I know this isn't a regularly scheduled meeting, so on behalf of the athletic department and the student athletes and the coaches, I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to come and hear me talk about sports. With that being said, so I sent a bunch of stuff at one point, and then today I sent you a whole bunch of other things that updated the stuff that I already sent you. To get the fall 2 season going has been a process, to say the least. This process started way back when the COVID task force for the MIA said that the start date for fall 2 would be February 22nd. And since then, there's been meetings after meetings, sports medicine committee meetings. I did send you all basically a timeline to how we arrived to where we are today. And it's still, that timeline is still going. I have another Midland Wachusett League athletic director meeting on Friday, but pretty much each step of the way, when I thought I finally had something, for example, Friday, I had a meeting with the league athletic directors, giving us what I thought was good information to move forward with. That information, for some parts of it, changed Friday afternoon. And then Monday, the EEA, the state EEA department, they released new guidelines, which changed what I had learned on Friday, again, Monday afternoon. And then I had a MIA Sports Medicine Committee meeting on Monday night, which then changed some of the guidelines brought forth by the EEA. And then yesterday, some of those things changed again. So I wanted to provide you with the most accurate and updated information as possible, to give you everything that I possibly can to get your blessing to move forward with fall 2 athletics. As you can, I tried to simplify it and make it very straightforward as to what modifications have been made for certain sports, how we plan on conducting them, and when our anticipated start times are. For football, we plan on February 22nd start. That was decided by the league. That was originally supposed to be March 1st, and then they decided to go back to February 22nd. Track was originally, indoor track played outside was originally supposed to start on the 15th. And after Friday's meeting, that went back to the 1st of March with unified basketball and cheer. With the sport of football right now, that's the only sport in the fall 2 season going to be having games or competitions. Indoor track outside, if we are able to have meets, those would be done later in April when more facilities are open outside. Currently right now with the snow on the ground, it makes that logistically a little difficult, and in particular, the reason for the MIAA, they moved indoor track from the winter season to the fall 2 season because there was very few, if none, facilities available to host any indoor track practices and/or events. I know some schools out in Eastern Mass have held some events, but overall, the MIA track committee withdrew participating in the winter athletics and pushed it to fall 2. What else do I have? Some of the protocols have stayed the same. Like there's still going to be no locker rooms usage. The use or time for teams that are going to be allotted to practice is still 1 hour and 30 minutes. They would still do all the check-ins, all the sanitizing that we have followed in both the fall 1 and winter season. The first time when I sent you information, the EEA guidelines stated, and a lot of the MIA modifications were based on very limited use of inside facilities like the gym. The new EEA guidelines that came out on Monday changed all that, and now opens up the use for indoor facilities of a gym for football and for other sports. The MIA Sports Medicine Committee recommended that stay at a 25 person or 25 participant maximum. The EEA guidelines do suggest more, but being where we still are in the pandemic, the Sports Medicine Committee felt that it was best to curtail things that are inside and outside to a certain extent. The other thing that was attached along cold weather, there was a cold weather policy, not policy, but guidelines where usually sports are not taking place outside right now. We're usually in our winter season with the weather, extreme temperatures. For example, like 2 weeks ago on that Friday when it was cold, very cold, Jack Frost cold. That no athletics would be taking place on days like that. And the cold weather guidelines that we have, or that I provided, are guidelines that we'll be following. A lot of schools that have athletic trainers, that's left up to them to make that decision and decipher that as to how they're going to proceed. Where we unfortunately do not have that yet. The coaches will be provided with this, and I will be in communication with them to help guide them along, what's best, if we need to come inside, if we need to cut practice short, if we need to wear extra earmuffs, all that fun stuff. If you want me to go through the sports specific guidelines, I'll be more than happy to, but I just kind of broke out the changes specifically that affects each sport, whether it's roster limitations, modifications to the sport itself. And more of that nature. And then I provided as much information as I possibly could as to how I plan on executing all of this. If you give me the okay and green light, registration would open up tomorrow for for fall 2 athletics. I plan on having a meeting with the football team, players and parents on either 219 or 222. Have another meeting for the unified basketball, cheer, and indoor track parents and athletes on 215. Spectator guidelines, they have changed per EEA, but our tentative pod that we're in for football, they can modify those guidelines. Basically, the EEA guidelines had opened it up to allow 2 parents and 2 siblings per each athlete. Prior to that, there was a limitation of just 50 people, and football roster limits are capped at 45. So in a sense that if we had maxed out our football roster at 45 and another team maxes out their roster at 45, we get a lot of people on in and around the area of the football field. So the pod, we're trying to come up with best practices and on how to execute that and implement so that we are being as safe and cautious in executing the activity of football as best as we possibly can. The use of the gym in the winter season, that we're gonna follow the same protocols as we did the winter season, where teams would come in one door, exit out another door. There'd be a space in between to sanitize everything before the next group comes in. They'd be socially distanced with their stuff inside the gym. Practices and days, practices and games are all weather permitting. I mean, even just yesterday, the fun snow that we had, and looking ahead at the forecast, there's a couple more days of more fun snow. So it just breaks down how many days of activities that, we're planning on having and conducting for each team. Because there's no locker rooms for football players, or there is locker rooms for just to change real quick, but basically football players will be returning to their Pop Warner days where they have to carry their equipment home and carry it to the field for games and practices. I am going to provide each football player like a little 8-ounce spray bottle with equipment disinfectant, so that after practices and games, they can disinfect their equipment when they get home or before they get in the car, so they're ready for the next day, because we won't be having that stuff stored in the school. The same as winter season, the gym during the weekends is not available for use. And if there is a remote snow day, like there was yesterday, and I think the week before or a couple weeks ago, there was another remote snow day, the facility is closed. What I'm asking from all of you to help me make this happen, to further explain, the pod that we were right now temporarily placed in for football, we're expected to be playing the teams of Air Shirley, Quabbin, Gardner, Narragansett, Murdoch, and us. The majority of those schools we already play in football, relatively same size. It is a different type of pod than what we've seen in the fall and in the wintertime, but football is also a very different sport where even though we are close to Fitchburg and Leominster and Groton-Dunstable and North Middlesex, those schools are also a lot larger in football-wise capacity than Lunenburg. So we had to, when they came up with pods for football, they took that into consideration, because that also is a much bigger factor. But at the same time, in our pod, Gardner and Lunenburg are the only 2 schools that are fortunate enough to have a turf facility. So like the majority of the sports that have occurred already, athletic directors in schools have been very good at working together in order to make things happen for the betterment of the student athletes. And Lunenburg and Gardner would be basically host sites for football, where the games would either be played here or at Gardner. We would share basically everything in order to make that happen. Graciously, we hopefully can open our doors to allow, like Narragansett, who doesn't have a turf field, to allow them to come here after our teams have done what they need to do, and have, a practice on a field before they play a game on either Friday or Saturday. Air Shirley has expressed interest not only in one day, but they're curious as to the possibility of maybe even renting the field to practice more on a turf field, as opposed to just a parking lot or in a gym or in whatever kind of grass area they can find. When games are held here, and even in Gardner, basically the athletic directors talked, and whatever we decide for spectators, each athletic director will be in attendance at those games. And our fans, whatever limit we create, will be given some type of similar pass like we did in the fall. And fans will have to pre-register. And I will have a list, or if I can find other people to help work with me, we will have a list. And basically, if you're from Lunenburg, you would have to check in with me. And you would be then allowed to enter the facility, and you will be socially distanced to be able to watch the game. And then, just like the fall, you would enter one way, exit the other way. I got to strategically set up the football field and the facility, because we have a very open setting out back. So we got a lot of ways to enter and exit. So I got to figure out how I'm going to strategically place everything, but I'll make it happen. I promise you that. Again, with obviously the time of season that we're in, the field house is closed. So there's no restrooms. So we'll be renting porta toilets. That cost would be shared with all the schools, because each school is going to be using the facilities. So we thought it was best that, that was a cost that, everybody's going to basically use it. So everybody should have a responsibility of paying a portion of it. We are fortunate in our pod where a couple of schools do have athletic trainers. So when we do have games here in Lunenburg, the Air Shirley athletic trainer, who our kids are familiar with, he covers sometimes for our football games in the fall in the past, and he's usually at our hockey games. He will be covering the games here. So that's a benefit to us. In Gardner, the Quabbin athletic trainer, she will be covering the games that are held there. Yeah, I think I got them all. That's the football portion. The other piece that I'm asking for you to consider, aside from approving athletics and to allow me to share our facility, is in a couple of the sports with unified basketball and indoor track, because there are no competitions scheduled yet. I am within our football pod, the schools within that, I am trying to work out a couple of indoor track meets outside. So I guess we could call them inside out track meets in April. I am asking for a reduction in the user fee due to that. I haven't asked in previous seasons, the fall and winter, due to transportation costs, but where the uncertainty of having those meets is up in the air, the reduction in user fee would still go towards those sports. I still need to purchase additional pieces of equipment so that kids aren't limited to what we have now and don't necessarily need to share everything. We can have things so that individuals have their own, or at least we have more of something so that there's less sharing going on. Indoor track for the boys team on order, we have purchased new uniforms that we bumped up from, we were planning on getting those next year, but we bumped those up to this year. So some of the money collected from the boys indoor track fees will go towards offsetting that cost of those new uniforms. Football, there would be no change in the fee, and cheer, even though they're similar with the practicing, and hopefully they might have an opportunity to participate or cheer at an event. They also we also ordered new uniforms for them. And we upgraded a little bit, so some of the money that we're collecting from that user fee can help offset the cost of those cheerleading uniforms. I think that's it. I need a drink of water. But other than that, we're good.
Questions from the committee? Ms. Shapiro?
Hi, thank you so much. That was really thorough. That was great. I was just wondering a couple things. First off, as far as scheduling goes with the other teams using our facilities, like I'm absolutely in favor of that. I'm just wondering how you're gonna schedule that to make sure that like our athletes aren't coming in contact with anybody coming in to use the facility for practice or anything like that.
Sure. That's a great question. Basically, our teams always take precedent. So it's not like they're coming in right after school to bump somebody off. Football, right now, the tentative schedule that the coach had sent me, he requested to practice 3:30 to 5. So I would be scheduling another team if they were to use our facility that one day or whatever 2 days. They not until at least 5:30. So our kids would be well gone before anyone else would be coming in.
Perfect. That's awesome. Thank you so much. And then I was just also wondering, I know with the winter sports, in a row, if that makes sense, to like have easier contact tracing. Are you planning something similar for the fall 2 season?
I'm sorry, Mr. Shapiro, I could have been me, but you froze for a second. So all I got was in a row. So I missed everything before that.
I'm so sorry. No, I just said in the winter, I know the teams were playing the same teams like back to back. And so like in 1 week, like they would only play one team, even if they had 2 games, like for easier contact tracing. Were you planning on doing that again for this season?
Yeah, so basically just for football, it's it's basically a 5-game schedule. So you would ideally just play Gardner that week, and then next week you play somebody else. So we're in a sense just playing one school once.
That makes sense. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Archambault?
Hi, I don't know a great deal about turf fields. And I don't know anything about playing football on turf fields when there is snow in the air. Is this going to do a number on the turf field? Having multiple teams playing all the time on these fields?
Not on a turf field. That's the lovely thing about turf. If it was a grass field, then we could be very worried. The athletic department has reached out to a person in town that has helped the school out before to help hopefully clear portions of the turf and the track off, allow the athletes both in track and in football use the facility, or at least help reduce the amount of snow to make it melt faster. But turf, you can't really overuse it if you take care of it the right way. And with people, in football, there's a limit of 30 minutes of actual hitting. So most of it is just repetition and individual drills outside with spacing. So you're getting people that just run up and down the field. So it shouldn't create any more additional than normal, and where we used it actually less in the fall season. and we didn't use it at all in the spring. So our turf field has got hopefully a little bit of extra life in it because of the reduction of those seasons or no seasons at all.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going down. Mr. Leighton.
Thank you. I had I guess maybe more of a request that we could make sure that we request or send information to the other schools just about protocols and just keeping our turf field clean and taking care of it and making sure that it doesn't get left a mess.
Oh, absolutely. That's part of what the athletic director from Gardner and I had discussed. One of the biggest things right off the bat, because other schools would be using our facility, I've actually already received today certificates of insurance from Quabbin. All the other schools, aside from Gardner, because they're practicing at their own facility, we'll be sending that over, and I'll be forwarding that over to the central office. And in addition to that, it's basically the expectation from the Gardner athletic director and myself is that they are treating it better than they would treat their home field, because in a sense it's becoming their home field, and without us opening our doors, they're not playing football. So if they don't treat it the right way, then unfortunately they're going to hurt themselves because they won't have a place to go.
Mr. Bunnell, I had a few questions.
Fire away, Wendy. I'm ready.
When it piggybacks off Sophie's question regarding contact. So I get that we're working, having that reciprocal relationship with the other teams within our pod. Right now, the public's not using our turf field. Like, they can't come in terms of usage the way they used to. So would we be having those same teams, like 1 week if Gardner was going to be there, that's who's practicing, to limit contact? Because in thinking about, we're telling the public we're trying to reduce that exposure. So how are we going to try and limit the exposure on our end of lots of different folks during a week's time?
Sure. So in a sense, if we can look at it more of, so Gardner, their turf field facility is going to host Gardner, Quabbin, and Murdoch for practices.
Okay.
Once a week, Narragansett, like let's say Wednesday's Narragansett Day.
Okay.
After our kids are done, Narragansett would practice from 5:30 to 7. And that would be it for them that week unless we had a game maybe against them on a Saturday, or they needed to use the facility on a Saturday for a game. Air Shirley, it depended on which route we take. If we open it up for them to practice after us, they could potentially be here after the fact, but again, it's after everybody's gone. That would be the only other piece, but it's like the spacing that I did in the fall, but it's just around one field. And the fortunate piece is that we only have really that game or event taking place on the turf field. And with the change in the EA guidelines to open things up for indoor activities to happen, allows indoor track to do certain things inside the gym, where before, during their 10 practice sessions, they weren't allowed to do that. And whatever we need to do, I know the football coach, if track was going to be using the track outside, let's say on Tuesday, then football would rearrange to conduct accordingly to allow that to happen. And we would just rearrange the schedule going forward to allow spacing for people to come, to go, to leave, to clean, and all that fun jazz that comes with COVID.
As far as you mentioned snow removal, how how is that happening? Are you doing that? Are you going out with a front end loader, or how is, no, I'm serious, a snow blower? I'm into, from a safety perspective and, an ease of use perspective.
So prior to me becoming athletic director here, a person in town who's a very, I don't want to mention his name because I don't know if he wants to get recognition for it. So I don't want to put him on the spot. But someone that's been very generous with his time and expertise. I have reached out to Shaw Sports. That's the turf product that we have. He sent over the updated recommendations for how snow can be removed safely from a turf field. And I've forwarded those along to the person that may be able to help us out in clearing the turf. The biggest thing is that if the green starts to get exposed, you don't go all the way down like to the pavement or to the actual turf. You're actually still leaving a couple inches of snow on the turf, but it's just making it so the sun, when it's shining down on that field, it can penetrate it more quickly. And as soon as that green starts to get exposed, it melts a lot faster.
So you're saying that there's a volunteer then who's going to do this, who's going to be responsible for the clearing?
Yep.
Okay. Bathrooms, you brought up porta potties. How did those get cleaned?
By the porta potty people.
Are they, honestly, do they clean them?
Yes, they do. They flush out in a sense, how to be politically potty correct. They hook up a hose and flush it out, and you get a whole clean porta potty.
Okay. And inside as well, the
Yeah.
surface? And how often is that taking place?
I have to talk to the porta potty guy, and it can occur however often I want it to take place.
Okay.
Usually it's like once a week because of the sanitizing chemicals inside. But because the lovely added extra measures that Lunenburg's athletic department decided to take after football practice is done, outside, the coaching staff and or myself will be going and spraying down the whole inside with our disinfectant, just as we did with like inside the gym, the mats, the chairs, everything else. So that'll be sanitized pretty much on a daily basis.
Okay. That was definitely a question. In terms of participation, you talked about, it was good to hear regarding a reduced fee, because it definitely seemed, without any guarantee of any competitions or meets or games, it's hard to charge a full fee. What is the fee you're proposing, or is that something you?
I had it, it's at the bottom of the update of the update. Indoor track is $100 per athlete, and unified basketball is $50 per athlete.
Okay.
And that would be it. Normally, I know if you have two athletes participating, you would get a reduction. Like if you had a kid playing football and another one playing indoor track, one fee would be less, but where basically they're flat fees. So if you're playing football, it's $250. If you have two people playing football, there'd be that reduction. If you have someone playing football and track, it would be the $200 and then the $100. You're not going any lower.
And is there any consideration where, say, with some of the limited numbers, like you were talking about with track, will precedence be given to high school students?
Where
if the numbers are,
there isn't any
limits
right now, there was no limits discussed both in the league and at the MIA level. The only limits that they did talk about was that if there is meets, they're limited to the number of events that they can participate at a meet.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Ms. Kelly? Oh,
Couldn't find my mute button. Sorry. I was just wondering how are we handling spectators and monitoring that social distancing is happening, especially when we're having numbers change throughout the different districts. If there's a higher risk town with spectators coming in, is this up to their discretion that we're trusting people to be responsible, or is there someone going to be actually able to monitor that?
So I kind of alluded to it earlier. So basically the only spectators that would be here would be for football events, where both athletic administrators from each school will be there, and people have to pre-register. When they check in, they're basically, we're asking them, you're good. You're not. So, and then once they give us that assurance, that's when we're letting them in. And part of the reason too, of having both athletic administrators there is that for example, I know the people from Lunenburg. So if there's an issue or if they're not following the rules that they're supposed to, I would be talking to them, and if they choose not to do that, they'll be leaving. And the same that if from another school, if there's an issue with someone from their spectator portion, they're going to deal with it. And if they're not going to respect the guidelines that have been established, they'll be leaving.
So we're not doing temperature checks at the gates, are
No,
we?
unless if you want me to, that's something that you can absolutely have me do. We weren't planning on it, but again, this is, being remote learning. Hopefully I worded it right, Dr. Burnham. Being remote, technically, I haven't had to come before school committee to get approval to have athletics. I have come each season seeking approval because I wanted to be upfront and transparent and to make sure that everybody knows what I'm planning on doing, and then everybody's on the same page, and that if there is something that you want me to do further to have athletics, then that's what I'm going to need to do. So, continuing with that trend, it's the same thing. If you feel that I need to do something more strict, I'll be more than happy to. If you feel that it's good enough, then awesome. If you feel I need to do backflips while I'm doing it, I'll try my hardest to get that done. I'm a pretty good sized guy, so getting the backflip and getting up in the air is a little tougher now, but we'll make it happen. But I can honestly say, whatever you do request, I'll be more than happy to do my best to fulfill that. But Lunenburg has had 2 shortened seasons due to COVID, but in the fall, none of our teams experienced any change from it. In the wintertime, something that I'm very proud of, we were the only school in our basketball pod that didn't have to pause related to COVID. Every other school in our pod did at some point. Ice hockey, we were one of 2 schools that didn't have to pause, where all the other schools either had to pause once and in some cases even twice. And I take, my position on the MIA Sports Medicine Committee and these guidelines that are presented very seriously. Sometimes probably a little bit over the top, but in doing so, I know that our student athletes were able to have 2 full seasons where all these other districts didn't. So whatever you guys need me to do to make it happen, to allow football, track, cheer, and unified basketball to happen, just let me know, and I'll be more than happy to take care of that.
any other questions from the committee? then I will entertain a motion if someone would like to put one forward. Ms. Shapiro?
This is Sophie Shapiro, and I move to accept Mr. Bunnell's proposal to play the fall 2 season and use our facilities for other schools.
Is there a second? Mr. Leighton?
This is Brian Leighton, and I second the motion.
I think we're ready for a roll call vote.
Ms. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Leighton,
Yes.
Mrs. Ashambo,
Yes,
and Mrs. Bertrand.
Yes.
And I would just ask that we consider another motion to accept the reduced fee.
Yes. I'll take that motion. Ms. Archambault?
I would move that we accept the reduced fee for indoor track and unified basketball as outlined by Mr. Bunnell.
Is there a second? Ms. Shapiro?
This is Sophie Shapiro, and I second that motion.
Ready for roll call?
Yes.
Ms. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Leighton,
Yes.
Mrs. Archambault,
Yes,
and Mrs. Bertrand.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much on behalf of the coaches, athletes, and staff, and myself. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. The other item on our agenda tonight has to do with signatories. So Dr. Burnham, can you give a little bit of history about this?
Sure. Recently, there's been conversation back and forth with Town Hall. They want to make some changes. They are changes that are allowable by regulation. Essentially, the change would be to have one person per board. So one member of the Board of Selectmen, one member of the school committee with an original signature, paper, pen, ink, sign the warrants. You know, something that I would offer up for consideration is that even though that might be allowable, I still think it's important for all the members of the committee to have the opportunity to review the warrants and sign electronically. So we would ask for you to give some consideration to continuing to do what we've been doing. Mrs. Bertrand wouldn't have to sign electronically. She would sign a print copy. Liz Peterson's here tonight. She can talk to you more in depth about it. She's the one that's been engaged in conversation directly with Karen Brochu from Town Hall. So Liz, is there anything to add?
Basically, you covered it. I just wanted to give the community that's on a little background of how things have happened in the past so that they'll understand why we're trying to move forward with this. So in the past, for many years, you would have to take action in an open meeting with the warrants, and all school committee members would have to sign hard copies. That went on for many years. Then when the COVID pandemic came up, we were trying to figure out a way with Town Hall that we could do this electronically instead. At the time, we did not have something like DocuSign to be able to do this. So between Mrs. Brochu and I, we came up with the idea of having a Google folder that would have all of the cover pages and the invoices as backup so that the school committee could access that folder and sign the warrant cover pages. Then I would download them and send them to Town Hall for processing. So that has worked pretty well, I have to say, through this whole pandemic. But we would like to take a step further now and move forward. And that's why on our end, we're looking into purchasing DocuSign so that it's more efficient and easier for the committee to do that. But still have that hard copy signature that town hall was requesting. That would be the chair of the school committee or the vice chair in her absence.
And essentially, much like we do take the vote to, have the chair sign payroll. Essentially this evening, after you have some discussion about the way you would like to move forward, essentially we'd be looking for you to all agree and appoint Wendy as the chair to be the signatory on the paper copy, and then actually consider protocol should the chair not be available to sign the paper copy. With the payroll, we determined it would be the chair, the vice chair, and then the secretary. So you could do something similar if you're all amenable to that idea.
I think that is a sound plan. I mean, I think that order in terms of anything that needs signing makes sense. Anybody else on the committee have any feeling about that? No. Mr. Leighton?
Thanks. I agree. The order makes sense. I did have a question about just the process. So the chair signs it, then would at the next meeting or at some point the other members would see that, I guess, the details of the document?
So what
Yes.
we're proposing is that largely the process we've been using with the electronic backup and cover pages in a Google folder for all of you, that you would still be able to see all of the backup and sign off. And we would have the electronic signature for the rest of the members, but be able to provide the original signature on paper that the town hall is requesting by the chair. So essentially you're all seeing it. It's just that the chair would sign off on a paper cover page, just the one signature. But we would also then, have all of your electronic signatures as well. We just, in giving consideration to it, we thought it was still important for all of the members to be able to review the warrants with all of the backup and sign off on them as well. So essentially what we're recommending is that in order to meet the requests that town hall is making, we authorize someone to sign the paper copy for town hall, and everyone else would continue doing what we've been doing and sign electronically. As Liz mentioned, we've been working trying to connect for some time with the representative from DocuSign. I think that truthfully, as soon as we can move to DocuSign, I think that you're going to see that it is much more efficient and you will be able to move through warrants much more timely than the way that we've been operating now, because you have to open a document and review it, open the document that would be corresponding to it, and then sign it, and so on and so forth. So it's very time consuming the way we're operating right now. We are looking to transition to something that is going to be much more efficient in terms of gathering everyone's signatures, much less time spent for all of you to provide an electronic signature. But the thought is that we think it it makes good sense to continue to have all of you review the warrants and sign electronically. And we just make the adjustment that if you all agree that it's Wendy that's going to sign the paper warrant, she doesn't have to sign electronically because she'll be signing pen and paper. But essentially all of you would still review and sign off. I mean, you could decide that you just want Wendy to sign off for all of you. I mean, that is all that the town hall is asking for.
We just, in reviewing it with Dr. Burnham, I felt, and I know she did too, that it was important for the rest of the committee to have eyes on all of the backup. So that's why we were saying that, you know, even though Wendy would provide the original signature, that it would be important for the rest of the committee to see what was in the rest of the warrants.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other comments from the committee? All right, then, if someone would like to make a motion to accept the new signatory policy with the chair signing hard copies, everyone else having access and signing digitally, and the order of signing if the chair is not able to sign, vice chair, then secretary. Ms. Shapiro?
This is Sophie Shapiro, and I move to appoint Wendy Bertrand as our primary warrant signatory, Carol Archambault as our secondary, and Laura Kelly as our tertiary, with the other 4 members signing the warrants electronically.
Is there a second? Ms. Archambault?
This is Carol Ashambo. I would second that motion.
We amend it just so that it's the positions and not the people.
I was gonna suggest that we do that just because
Absolutely.
time will change this, so. All right.
Again, or are we good?
So we'll just amend the motion to, rather than by name, primary
By
would be the
position.
chair, secondary would be the vice chair, tertiary would be the secretary.
Mhm.
Yes.
Thank you very
All right.
much.
And we're ready for roll call vote.
Ms. Shapiro? Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Archambault?
Yes.
Mr. Leighton?
Yes.
Mrs. Bertrand?
Yes,
Thank you all.
thank you. And now we are on to public comment. So this public comment is open to any topic that the school committee governs.
Hi, Wendy.
Going through. Hi.
It's Jane Gallagher here. I will start my video.
I was just gonna say I didn't see your hand up. So yes, let me do.
Oh, I'm sorry. And I do you want me to raise my hand?
No. I scroll through because I can't get everybody. It's great that we have lots of folks on our meetings now, but I have to do a scroll just to see, see hands up visually, and then if anybody raises their hand through the participant screen. So yes, feel free to go ahead, Ms. Gallagher.
Thank you. So many things. And
with your address, if you can just give us your name and your address.
Jane Gallagher, 9 Valley Road in Lunenburg.
Good to go. Yes.
I have a few things, and I work full time, so I wasn't able to review all the documents that were sent out this afternoon at 4:30. So I apologize. I probably would have commented earlier, but just a couple of comments. Outdoor track, I know that there are so many variables, indoor track, I should say. I'm sad that we're not planning to have any meets. I know that there are only a few facilities out there that can accommodate for indoor track. So I'm just really, really sad about that. I am a little concerned about having other football teams use our turf, only because I know that the track team has had 10 practices that were approved for them to have over these last couple of weeks. And during that time, there have been other football teams on the turf while they're there. And I know that there are guidelines that we're trying to follow as far as how many people can be at a facility at a time. So I just have some concerns about, sort of those numbers and when people can be there and how that's going to be scheduled, because it hasn't really worked well so far. So just a concern, just a message of warning there that I'd like to bring up. The porta potties, I'm glad that they're going to have facilities outside, but how are they going to be cleaned? A little more around the guidance around that would be appreciated, I think, for all of us. I know they come in and empty them once a week, but how do they clean the handles? How do they clean the inside of the porta potties? Like, what's going to happen there? And just injuries surrounding the kids who are, particularly sprinters who run, it's the same with the football teams working out in these really, really cold conditions. It is obviously a concern probably for everybody, but just something that I want to bring up. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Mute. I'm not seeing any other hands. If I'm missing any, Dr. Burnham, please
I
yell
don't
out. Okay, excellent. Well, then we are on to any topics for future discussion. Actually, that's not even on our agenda tonight, so we're ready for adjournment. I'm so used to going to that last. So committee, thank you for the time tonight. And Mr. Leighton?
Yeah, I was just going to make a motion to
Make
adjourn.
a motion to adjourn? Yes. I'll take that motion. Is there a second? Ms. Kelly?
I'll second Brian's motion.
We're ready for roll call vote.
Ms. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Leighton,
Yes.
Mrs. Archambault,
Yes.
and Mrs. Bertrand.
Yes. Thanks
Thank you
again,
all very,
everybody.
very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Have a
Thank
nice
you.
evening.
Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.